Hello everyone, I am Sahid. Thank you for clicking this video. I'm very happy that you're here. So today I will be continuing my chapter series on this Canadian literature book that I've been reading for the past month now called Moon of the Crusted Snow by waubgeshig. This book has been really fun for me. It's given me a broader and different perspective of sort of the native indigenous cultures and particularly sort of the customs and traditions of the Anishinaabe people who live sort of within the Great Lakes region and the northern part of Canada. In this book, we read about a small indigenous community um, that lives on the res within the northern part of Canada, and they are very strong on hunting, fishing, living and giving back. It's sort of the way they honor their land, and it's sort of their way of surviving. Um, I always want to mention that before you watch one of my chapter series, I would appreciate if you watch the previous chapter videos as they give you a bit more idea and instinct on sort of how we got to the point which I'll be reading about today in chapter 18. One thing that I also like to mention when I give my brief summary before the chapter reading is that, excuse me, this community happens to be facing. I'm alive, guys. One thing I like to mention is that this community is facing a deeply horrible time in which they're currently facing an emergency due to a power outage that's occurring within their community. A power outage that's deeply affecting them and causing them to make sudden changes. They have to adjust with the way they preserve electricity and use energy because now they have to use a generator to to have a source of light, to have, internet in some form, to be able to have water because the generator is acting as sort of like it's sort of the machine, what they use to process the machine for the water treatment plants, which is what gives water to the community. So things like this are important to think of, and even food as well. This generator is sort of their temporary source of preserving food because due to this power outage, they no longer have, the access to do that. But thankfully, this generator is temporarily providing that. But the thing is that community leaders are worried that when the diesel runs out the generator, now what is going to happen to the community? And so, what is going to happen in the future has led to panic, anxiousness, and fear within several people within this community. During the meetings, they're often, murmuring to one another, saying things sort of, in sort of slightly anxious tones. And then, the commuters also are trying their best to keep it in order, despite them being helpless as well. And it's just been really interesting seeing how different characters react to this period. Seeing the motives and attitudes and moods of people within this book has been really important in helping me understand, the true goal of the author when he wrote about these people who happen to be facing this horrible sense of emergency, and then also during a cold season. It's just it's not easy at all, and it's been really interesting reading this book. And so I will read chapter 18 now. Thank you once again for joining. Chapter 18. Mygon stood on the counter on his tiptoes and peered into the dark cupboard. He gripped the bottom shelf with his left hand, a little nervous about the height from the floor. Okay, sweetie, tell me how many big cans there are, asked Nicole. The boy reached in with his right hand, extended and touched each one as he counted the cans of tomatoes. 1, 2, 3. He carefully tallied the wide tins wrapped in the familiar no name label. 4, 5, 6, 7. His voice piped with pride when he got to 7. Good. Way to go, bud, said his mother. Now do it one more time, just to make sure. A tedious task for any older child. This was a fun counting exercise for Michael. He was thrilled to be able to help his mother with an important chore and to be able to stand on the counter. All right, my boy, now do the little yellow ones, said Nicole. He opened the right cupboard and inspected the rows of cans of corn. Found them, he proclaimed. He proceeded to count and declared that there were 9 in there. Nicole jotted down 9 next to the whole corn in an elementary school scribbler. When they finished in the kitchen and in the hall pantry, she planned to tally the contents of the bigger pantry in the basement. But she would wait until Even arrived home to watch the kids so she could do it on her own. She wanted to keep the lights off in the basement for now and knew she'd be faster without her son later. She planned on counting the upstairs stores once again anyway. Not that she didn't trust her son's skill, she just needed something else to do to pass the time. Nicole had grown up in a house much like the one she shared with Even and her children. She had 2 older sisters. Geraldine, the eldest, lived on the other side of the res with her husband and 3 boys, and Danielle had moved to Toronto for school when she was 19 and had been there ever since. Her husband, Sean, was not native and was often teased by everyone in their wider family, but he was loved deeply nonetheless. Nicole thought now Nicole thought now of her 7-year-old nephew, Will, and what might have become of him since the red had been cut off from the world. She pictured his toothless grin and bright blue eyes. She wondered if Toronto was blacked out too. She thought of the chaos she'd heard about in Gibson and pictured her young nephew frightened as hungry mobs rolled through the bigger city streets where he lived. Fear crept up her back and she shuddered. She shook the thought from her head and focused again on Maigan. Okay, bud, how many little green ones? Those are the peas, she said. Ew, peas? I don't want to count them. Megan scrunched up his little face. Peas are gross. Nicole snickered. You don't have to eat them, just count them. Okay, the boy reluctantly agreed. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. The gons echoed from the table. She raised her head from her coloring book, apparently in need of attention. Nicole's heart warmed every time she heard her daughter's voice. Can you count to, baby girl? She asked. The 3-year-old nodded enthusiastically and looked back down to the erratic lines of blue and orange crayon that breached the outlines of the picture she was coloring in. Nicole heard feet stumping up the stairs to the front door and turned to see Evan's head loom into the window frame, his breath visible as he exhaled. He opened the door and Megan shouted, Daddy! I've been helping Mommy count the cans. Daddy! Nagans echoed. Nicole helped the boy down from the counter as the girl leaped off her chair. Anin binonjingaya jinyang, he boomed. They ran up and wrapped their arms around him, cold coat and all. He leaned down to kiss the tops of their heads while he tried to wiggle out of his coat, but the children stuck to his legs. Hey, Nicole said as he walked over to kiss her. They hugged, holding on tightly. Ah, this feels solid. This feels safe, she said into his shoulder. Huh? He said. Oh, nothing. Just glad you're home. It was unclear to them both if this was the shape of their lives now. Even still held out hope that it was temporary, but Nicole was less certain. Evan's workload had increased substantially with the electricity rationing. He kicked off his boots and collapsed on the couch. It was well past noon and he had been up since before dawn, plugging the roads and then driving Candace north around to continue inventorying people's food household food stores. It was their third day, an intense, tiring routine that involved taking a lot of questions and requests from the worried townspeople. When's this blackout gonna be over? Most asked. We don't have no more meat, declared others. You sure this food is gonna last? He was thankful that he didn't have to answer the questions. He just had to go through the refrigerators, cupboards, pantries, and deep freezers to register what people had so the council could determine what would be needed in the rollout of ration. He was disappointed to discover how few hunted anymore. Many had grown complacent in the rut of welfare. As he lay on the couch, Even thought about the remaining homes they had to get to. Images of pickup trucks blowing snow and counting cans and weighing moose meat whirled through his mind. He was driving the plug through a thick layer of heavy snow on the road by the rink. The truck struggled as the road became tougher to navigate the closer he came to the heart of the community. The overcast daylight cast everything in a sickly gray glow. He drove up to maintain intersection. He looked to his right to see if anyone was at the rink, but he could see that the metal roof had caved in. Ahead of him, the snow was nearly as high as the truck's headlights. The wheels spun but gradually caught some traction, and he kept plugging his way to the community complex with the band office, school, and health station. No one was around. It looked like no other vehicles had passed these roads in a very long time. The ghostly silence unnerved him. He reached the driveway to the community complex and frantically pulled on the steering wheel to make the turn. But the truck got stuck at the bottom of the hill. Desperate, he tried to open the door, but the deep snow blocked his exit. He body checked the door with his shoulder, but it barely budged. He shifted in his seat to face the door and raised his feet to try to kick it open with both legs. That didn't work either, so he kicked at the window to smash it open. His feet passed through and glass flew into the cab and out onto the snow, now as high as the window itself. Still, no snow fell from the sky above. Even climbed out head first, shards of glass tearing at his jackets and pants. He tried to stand on the snow, but fell up to his thigh with each step. He lay on his belly to crawl the rest of the way to the band office. With each pull, the thick snow crushed into his face. It went into his nose and mouth, and he struggled to breathe. He had to pause to come up for air. He looked behind him and saw a trail of blood all the way to the truck, where he looked behind him and saw a trail of blood all the way to the truck, where only the blue roof was now visible. The air remained dry and still, but the snow grew denser and seemed to rise from beneath him. Suddenly, the top began to freeze, taking hold of his arms, legs, and torso. It thickened with each lunge forward. He kicked to free his legs and feet as ice scabbered over the snow. He was sinking into the lighter stuff below, and he struggled to hold himself up on the cross, kicking and heavying himself forward with as much force as he could rally. He rolled over onto the ice, exhausted, and lay on his back for a moment to catch his breath before struggling to his feet. The crust was now thick enough to support his weight, so he began towards the building in the distance. He looked behind to find the gaping hole he'd escaped from, but it had already disappeared. A trail of blood still followed him. He didn't know where he was cut. He fixed his eyes on the front door of the complex. It appeared to sink as the snow got higher. He was running out of time. He needed to get in at all cost. He gasped for air as he pumped his legs as hard as he could. The creeping snow was now nearly as high as the door handle. Just steps away, he jumped forth with his shoulder down and his head tucked into his chest. His body hurtled through the glass. He got up and pulled over the second set of doors and went through, locking them behind him. The snow plowed through the broken glass and filled the space between the doors. It grew dark as snow swallowed the building. A fire burned at the far end of the foyer, flicking orange light onto the walls and ceiling. He looked up to see a frozen crust grow over the skylight, blocking out the overcast sky. The fire in the back made no smoke or heat, only light. He walked cautiously toward it. The whole space was barren. No furniture, no supplies, no signs of any kind of human presence. As he approached the fire, he noticed strange dark stacks lined up against the walls. They looked like rows of blankets. But the closer he came, he realized they were bodies, frozen stiff, wrapped in blankets, and piled 3 to 4 high against the clay rock walls. He stopped and struggled to breathe. His heart pounded, but his feet felt frozen. He stumbled forth almost drunkenly. The fire danced above the floor, suspended ominously. His heavy feet trudged slowly towards the pile of bodies on the left, wrapped in fading material and stacked together. They all looked the same size. These were all adults, he concluded. Thank God there are no children here. The room seemed to stretch longer the closer he got to the wall. The row of frozen bodies extended much further than he had originally realized. He looked back down and saw thick black hair sticking out the end of a grey wool blanket. He saw his hand rise to reach for it. His fingers stroked cold, coarse hair. He ran his palm across the stiff, frigid scalp and he pulled the blanket away from the face. The dream shocked him awake before he saw who it was. He yelped as he jolted up. Nicole came around from the kitchen and looked at him with concern on her face. You alright? Evan propped himself onto his left elbow and rubbed his eyes. Yeah, he croaked in a hoarse voice. Just a messed up dream. And that is the end of chapter 18. Okay, let's talk about it. Sorry guys for the slight word errors, I think, because it's kind of late and I'm kind of sleep deprived. My brain was just thinking of different things while I was reading. But let's talk about it. So chapter 18 started with a moment with Evan's family, specifically with Nicole McLeod, who is the wife to one of the main characters, Evan White Sky, who is a father and has 2 kids, a boy and a girl. Mygon is a 5-year-old boy and Nagon is a 3-year-old girl. And it begins with a scene in which Nicole is asking her son Mygon to count certain items in their pantry because of the food rationing that's going on, and so they could know what they have and what they don't have. And it's a really nice moment because he's just very passionate about counting, and he's like 1, 2, 3, and then Nicole also is sort of complimenting him and saying kind things that mothers would do when their kids accomplish something. And then we have Nagon's sort of at some point also counting. It's just a really nice moment with Nicole and her kids. And then Even comes home later, kind of very exhausted due to all the, sort of busyness he's had to endure due to what the community is currently facing and due to going to house about the food rationing because they're trying to preserve food and going to people's places and knowing what they have and don't have is how they could fairly distribute food during this state of emergency that they're in. And so he's been really busy and he comes out very tired, and we have a moment after he's sort of thinking he's there's a bunch of thoughts sort of whirling through his head as he's sitting on the couch after a long day at work of the people who were coming in asking questions and of sort of worried questions. I don't remember what exactly the question was, but I think there was a question in which somebody was asking when are they going to get the power back and what is happening with the food ration and all that. I don't remember the exact question. I could have just went back, but it's all right. And after that, he goes to bed, and when I was reading at first, I was like, "Oh my God, what is happening to even?" I was reading all these crazy things, and then we come to find out it was actually just a nightmare, sort of. It was a dream, because I was like, "Oh my God, like this is crazy. Like how do we get to this point with even like trying to escape a pile of snow, and he's stuck, and at some point he got cut. And I was just like, oh my God, what's going on? But we come to find out it was a dream. And then he wakes up, and Nicole is sort of questioning him what happened, and he's just like, he just had a messed up dream. And yeah, it's that's kind of what chapter 18 is about. But I do want to sort of mention that I think the author sort of included in this moment is within the book is sort of given a sense of trying to find ways to to express love, especially with the beginning scene with Nicole and her kids, and you know when Even comes back home and the kids are very excited to see him. And these are just things that I think humans do, and despite it's just horrible things that life throws at us, we find ways to express love and appreciate those we have. And it's Thanksgiving right now, and so appreciation is always so important because it truly does a huge deal for your mental being, and in just giving you a sense of resilience during times of just horrible things. And so I think the author including that gives a sense of hope that we still have our family. We still can love each other and stay strong during these times. And then with the part in which Even sort of has the nightmare, it just shows that these are the sort of outcomes and things that happen, the dreams that you see due to the worries about what has happened in the past, what's currently happening in the present, sort of what's yet to come in the future. And so, you know, it's a sense of fear in a way, you know, about what's possibly could happen in their community, and they're constantly bad thoughts roaming their heads right now. But yeah, that's chapter 18. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please kindly subscribe, like, and comment. Um, yes, and please tune into the upcoming chapters. Thank you. Bye.